interest as we hit key milestones, as we make different shifts or pivots within the company, as we get great press. And many times I've heard people have been told no, and that's been the end of the conversation on their end. I'll tell you, a significant portion of the investments that I received were because I continued to follow up and share what we were doing. And a lot of those no's became yeses. So no is not no. No could mean not right now.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So one of the things you'll hear very early on is we're looking for more traction. So as soon as you have more traction, and I always press back and say, well, what does that traction look like for you? Because sometimes the answer is this is going to be a year from now. Okay, well then I'm going to take the step back. I'll put you on my investor newsletter. Other times they'll just say, well, I want to see the product in my hand. Well, that's a sooner time frame. And so really being strategic about what
if you're pitching for a client to look at everything differently. So Rosa, in the technology space, there are women there, but not as much. And the application of technology is not something that is being readily applied for a lot of businesses. Some of these businesses in here that may not be like a tech business, but they may need to understand how they can deploy tech in their business. Can you give them some tips?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, well, you know, especially with emerging technology like blockchain, there's a fantastic movie, a documentary called General Magic. I don't know if anybody's in this room has seen it, but it was about some of the most brilliant technologists of the 80s kind of were brought together to create this product that they launched in 1994, which was basically the smartphone. I mean, down to the touchpad, and you know, it was a little mini computer that you could put in your pocketbook or in your purse, and it completely failed in 1994, and that was because it was sort of like there was this light bulb idea, the infrastructure there, it didn't work, it was a complete failure. And so sometimes failure just means you're too early, and there's a kind of a thin line between too early and wrong. And timing is sort of everything. And so I think that what we're seeing when we go in and talk to companies is this misunderstanding about technology, that there's some sort of light switch that just turns on and you go from one thing to another. It's not. When you're having a foundational technology that can be as disruptive as some of these emerging techs, which is, you know, AI and Internet of Things and blockchain, of course, you're looking at things that should run alongside a legacy system until you have made the transition. And maybe in some cases, not making the transition for a decade. But these are important things to kind of start propping up and thinking about with your business. And I want to encourage women very much that there's amazing products and amazing ideas out there, that don't be afraid to get into a space that is male dominated, or that you might be hearing a lot of no's, or is traditionally things that aren't necessarily women problems. You have the confidence in that you know what you're talking about when you're in these meetings. It's been really interesting to go in with my partner into these meetings and sort of watch everybody look at him to start the pitch, and this kind of surprise when I start actually doing it. And so we did just close an angel round with an investor who invested in us, specifically invested in us because I am a woman CEO. So he very much believes that a woman can lead an emerging technology company. So we're very happy about that.
Can I add something to what you just said? First of all,
Yeah.
Congratulations. I think that's amazing. But I think that there's this thing that we can't see that's happening all around us right now. And I think it's so timely to talk about an International Women's Day. Do go into those rooms where it's traditionally men. People are looking for that right now.
Yeah.
There is opportunity right now in a way that there's not been before. There are fundamental shifts taking place. It's like this very quiet undercurrent. It's also being driven by macroeconomics, right? We have the largest transition of wealth ever taking place right now from the hands of men to women. So for the first time ever, women will be in control of the majority of the assets in this country. And we make about 70% of the purchasing decisions for every single household. There's a lot of power there. So I think spot on with what you just said.
Yeah, and some of the things like that we're seeing even, you know, in blockchain, and I had these concepts about blockchain even in 2014, enterprise blockchain, so to speak, just kind of hit the world stage in 2015. And so I think it's also making things relatable to women. I used to beg my friends to come to a crypto meetup, and like none of them ever wanted to do it. But then when you start talking about, women are different, they think differently about the world, they perceive the world differently. And so when you start talking about, yes, but we can use blockchain to show that this particular item that you're purchasing was truly organic or truly from a sustainable solution or was not manufactured by child labor in China. When you start talking about that sort of shining the light in the darkness that blockchain can provide, you start resonating with women.
So we talked about technology, and Ericka, you use technology to run your company, the Stork Bag.
Being able to switch and shift when they switch and shift. I know that my market is majority of women shop with me. I have a gifting. Hey, there's something called the Stork Bag. Go to this website and he purchases. And so really, it's really understanding where my market is. It's understanding what they're doing, what they're talking about, and what they need, and especially what they need, and like a need for your customer. So for a Stork Bag, we look at mental health and pregnancy. So I talk about it's so important for women, especially pregnant mothers, mentally and emotionally draining pregnancy is until you actually talk to a woman and you say, how are you feeling? And not just a surface, how are you feeling? But in first trimester, like, how are you feeling? And she starts to tell you that I'm sick every day, and no one really knows that I'm pregnant because I'm not showing, and all of these different things are going on, and then you tell someone you're pregnant and they buy you a onesie for the unborn child, and you're looking like, oh, that's nice, and typically, about 80% of women never get anything for themselves when they're pregnant. They get things for the unborn child. And so what we want to do is we refocus and we put that attention on the mother, because it's so very important, not only for mom, but for the unborn baby too. And so really knowing our market, really knowing what our market wants and talking to them, sitting down and talking to them like we're friends, and that really comes from organic outreach, social media. It comes from going in the communities, talking to them, showing them like, hey, I'm a mom, I have 3 sons, I didn't get anything when I was pregnant. Even if I have an awesome husband, no gifts just for mom. There were no gifts, there were no curated gifts to give a woman when she's pregnant. So I'm pretty sure mom gets 0. She gets nothing. All of the gifts are for baby. So refocusing that and really saying, okay, mom's coming in, subscribing 7 different this, standing when she has, creating this unique proposition so that you're going to have competitors, but when your competitors come around, you can say, oh, they have that, that's awesome. You can shop with them too, but if you shop with the Stork Bag, you're getting exclusive products. If you shop with the Stork Bag, you're getting a keepsake. If you shop with the Stork Bag, although you're going to get it in a shipping box, you're going to have a bag where you can go back and look at that bag, where you can, this is a keepsake where when your baby's getting older, you have a casting kit that you can put newborn baby in. And there's so many different elements to really understanding the market and being strategic when it's time to go out there and not only acquire those customers, but retain those customers.
I feel like husband didn't know before, but he knows now, right?
He knows.
Spread the word. That's
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about it, we touched about like overcoming the no, going past failure. But besides just standing in the mirror with the hands on my hip on the Superwoman pose, what is one skill set, one thing that you think that women should know, implement, have ready in their toolbox for success? Start with you.
I think one of the things that women struggle with, is certainly I do, is this constant feeling that everybody has to like you. And I think that liking a woman in a woman's head means something a little bit different than a man. And in business, some of the characteristics and traits that you have to kind of exhibit to show that you're a strong leader or that you know what you're talking about or to get respect are not necessarily things that people automatically associate with likable women. And so when I say, be fearless about not caring if people like you, I don't mean that you're not fun to be with or nice to get along with, but this sort of passiveness that I think women associate with being liked. Like try to overcome that as much as you possibly can. As a mom, I have 2 children as well. My partner has 2, so we're raising 4 kids together. So I think that even as a mother, there has to be this moment where you can kind of separate all of these different hats. And the businesswoman hat isn't necessarily the person that is the most likable under female terms, if that makes sense. Like trying to not worry too much about those being liked as a woman perceives being liked.
I think you have to develop a confidence, and not only a confidence when you're in a room full of women or when you're in a room full of women who look like you, but a confidence when you're in a room full of men, a confidence when you're in a room full of people that you don't know, someone where you don't see any type of familiar face. And having that confidence is really going to allow people to sit up straight and listen to what you're saying. Because not only are you talking about something and they want to hear you because the way that you're talking about it, but you're confident enough to be able to look everyone in their eyes and say, this is the product, or this is what I'm here for, this is who I am, and ask for my business card when I'm done, because there's a confidence there. And so I think as a woman, it's especially important for you, even if you're scared, because there's going to be fear there. But even if you're scared, right before you open that door, you give yourself a pep talk and you say, all the fear is out the door. And whatever is scaring me, you're hitting it and you're saying, whatever, whatever happens, happens, and really expecting the best thing to happen. So it's really going to be about developing that confidence and walking in that confidence no matter what your surroundings are, no matter who's with you, and no matter who's in the room.
Are there any business skill sets that we're seeing that you wish you would have known before you started your business?
I kind of want to take that conversation about dealing with whatever happens. I think the strongest business skill set you can have is that ability to have some flexibility. You need to have a really laser-focused vision, but at the same time, you need to be able to pivot. And I think that with women, we're sometimes not trusted with taking on that role. But you have to be much more conscious. And that's not a skill that you have immediately. It's one that comes with many, many times of a little bit of failure or trying to shift, trying to communicate with a different audience because you're always trying to placate. But I think the strongest business skill set you can develop is that ability to be flexible while staying really focused.
I think that a critical skill set in business, of course, is communication, right? It goes back to knowing your audience. You have to be able to speak a message that's going to resonate appropriately with whomever you're talking to. And then I think the other thing that can be really, really critically important for women is the ability to be able to feel comfortable in situations that are consistently uncomfortable. When you run a business, you are going to be having 1,000 different first times. And some of those can be very scary, especially if your business starts to grow really, really rapidly, right? You're going to be in situations and contract sizes and different kind of legal regulations and all of these different things that you perhaps have never been faced with. So your ability to be able to bravely step into a situation that makes you uncomfortable at your core and have the grace to say, I'm just gonna step in there, it's going to be what it's going to be, I'm going to do my best, but I am not going to shy away from situations that make me uncomfortable. I'm going to step into them bravely, and what happens, happens.
Absolutely. Are there any, besides yourselves, your partners, who else in the industry are you following? Anyone else that you're listening to? Any books that you could recommend so that they can put in your notes and go check out later for themselves?
Okay, I'll start. There's a book, it's called Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. If you have never heard of that book, you have to pick it up. It's a great book about assertiveness. And I know one of the things for women, what we tend to do when we get in meetings, especially when it's male dominated, is we tend to kind of make ourselves smaller. And in doing that, there's no way for you to really get that leadership position when you are making yourself the smallest person in the room. So that book is a really great tool to have. I read the whole book and I still go back and I look at different chapters within the book because all of us need reminders. So I would say to pick up that book it's like I said, it's a great tool for assertiveness. As far as an entrepreneur that I follow, Angela Benton, she is a entrepreneur in the tech space, and I've been following her for quite some time. I actually have a funny story about her, but I went to the Inc. Women's Conference a few years ago in New York, and she was a speaker, and I was just in the audience, and she got off the stage, and I kind of went back there, and they were like, "What are you doing? You can't do this." And I'm like, "That's my friend back there." And so I opened the door, and she's like, and I'm like, "Hey, Angela." She's like, I don't know her. And I was like, "Can we talk?" And after that, she kind of became this informal mentor because she's like, "You are out of your mind, but what do you do?" So Angela Benton is definitely that person for me. But yes, pick up Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. Thrive is another really great book. I can go on and on and on, but I have a YouTube channel. Sorry for the shameless plug. It's called Minding Business, and I talk about, I'm doing a new book club type thing. So follow my YouTube channel, Minding Business, and I talk about a lot of those things. Okay.
Yeah, and I definitely think because it's difficult to find role models that do this sort of, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business person, I'm leading companies. Very difficult to find mentors. I was lucky enough to, prior to opening Block Spaces 2 years ago, I was at HSN for quite some time in the e-commerce division, and Mindy Grossman, just did it right. And so she's now currently the CEO. She left HSN. She's the CEO of Weight Watchers now with Oprah and Oprah owns Weight Watchers. Finding someone who really does it right and kind of following in their direction is really helpful.
I'm all about podcasts. And if you ever ask me for recommendations, I'm going to send you 10 podcast episodes because that's how I absorb information. Zigzag is a great podcast. It's about two women who they are documenting their story of going out on their own. And they have fantastic interviews that they often do with women entrepreneurs that you've never heard of because they are local people that they know. I'm also a big fan of How I Built This. It is so inspirational, and I listened to pretty much every episode and would start to get this pattern in my head because I often do it when I'm running, and I'm kind of standing up straight thinking, oh yeah, this is how I'm going to tell that part of my story. And it's really this incredible experience of starting to live through all of those early stages and hopefully having that $1 billion exit that they all seem to have at the end because they just sort of foreshadow that. And then I love Reid Hoffman and Masters of Scale. That's talk about the trying to learn terminology I never knew before. But it's really, he breaks down storylines into little nuggets of what you're not thinking about maybe in your business at the moment. So here's a great way to someone show leadership not in the business world and then tying it together to another company. And so I think that it gives you a lot of lessons.
And, I wanted to say, I also wanted to say that, I think it's important to find women who failed and watch how they have failed gracefully. And I think that we give a lot of lip service to, don't be afraid to fail. But when push comes to shove, we always celebrate the people who have the $1 billion exit. And I feel that, especially in a world of emerging tech, if you're not failing, you're not innovating, and I really believe that. And so I feel that we should be much more comfortable with celebrating failure. I was talking to a friend who is in Silicon Valley, and he said the biggest difference between Silicon Valley and everywhere else is that while here we celebrate wins, in Silicon Valley they have Failure Fridays, and they celebrate their failures because it means they're actually kind of purging a new path when they're failing. So I think always remembering that if you're truly innovating and you're truly working on something that can potentially change the world, you're probably going to fail a lot.
So I'm a little bit older school.
We don't
So
fail, we
I
just
think
get better.
that, if you're a company owner, the two books that I would say are reading 101, you've got to read them, are the Lean Startup. That should be essential reading for anyone starting any kind of business, even if it's not a tech business. The second book that I think everyone should read is called Venture Deals. I can tell you, everyone talks about starting a business, incredibly exciting. Everyone gets immersed in their ideas, incredibly exciting. If you do a good job at these things, at some point in the trajectory of your business, and I don't care if it's a tech business or a traditional bricks and mortar business or an online business, I don't care what kind of business it is, but if you do a good job at these things, you are going to reach a financial crossroads where you do not understand the money and how the money works and how the money components work, you are going to be at a significant disadvantage. So I would say becoming educated in that area, at least enough to not get taken advantage of, is critically important. And find strong partners who know what they're doing, who have seen deal flows. Find a mentor who's been through it. And I also do love what you said about failing. I am so incredibly proud to say that I have sold a company. I have had a company go under. I have a brand new venture. So it's important to try these things. Not every idea is going to be profitable. Not every concept is going to play out. But once you kind of master the fundamentals, it's something you can do over and over again. So don't be afraid to fail. Certainly our male counterparts aren't. And when they get these setbacks, right, we see people, they're serial entrepreneurs, they're serial founders. They start one thing and either it works or it doesn't, and then they jump and they start the next thing and that works or it doesn't. Think about how that puts the law of odds in your favor, right? Mm-hmm. How have you exponentially increased your odds if you're not afraid to fail? If you go for it and it doesn't work out, you pivot, you do it again, right?
And a tip about venture deals, so the first time you're going to read it, you're not going to understand most of it. Flag sections for the stage that you're in for the negotiating, so that you can go back to those parts, because when you're in the midst of the negotiation, especially if it looks like a big check is coming, you get excited and you forget, oh my God, I really didn't want to be doing that interest rate, or I didn't want to be putting that provision in. Yeah. So take that step back, because it's going to feel overwhelming at first. Flag the areas of where you think you're going to be at certain stages so that you can really use it as a tool. Yeah.
Another thing people don't realize with venture deals is that there's a course. Red Felt and all of them walk you through the course. You can take it. So get the book, look online. You can take the course. I've taken it. I've actually recommended several women to take it, and they found through it and have enjoyed it, even if they're not going to be asking for money anytime soon. But understanding finances is huge as a business owner. So I'm gonna kind of put you guys on the spot, but I'm gonna put myself on the spot too while I do this. Whenever I talk to founders, because I do write on diversity and technology for an online publication, I get to interview hundreds of founders every year. They've raised $1 million plus. So I get to hear all the different stories. And so one question I always ask is, what was a challenge and how did you overcome it? And then I, in turn, get asked that same question, how did I overcome it? So for me, I'll start as a marketing and public relations company. I try to lean into what is the traditional trajectory of it. But for those who don't know or know something about me, I have an engineering background. That is my undergraduate degree. So once I realized to lean into that and I stopped trying to mimic what everyone else was doing, I saw success in my company. So I'm opening this up to any of you. Is there something that where you challenged yourself, you realized it didn't work, but then it was your aha moment and it led to something else that you'd like to share?
So, I mean, for us and for me, it was going back to like 2014 when I first started thinking about blockchain other than cryptocurrency. One of the very first things that I thought about was how it could impact voting. And we wanted to do a voting platform. So our very first startup is a company called ClearVoter, which is a civic engagement platform that was on the front end face, it was a civic engagement platform. On the back end, we always envisioned it being a great way to deploy blockchain-based voting. But that was 2014. And so it was way ahead of anything, because you have to get the concept of digital identification down before you could do blockchain-based voting. So it was sort of that moment like in General Magic where you have the light bulb and you don't have the power grid. So blockchain basically was the light bulb, we didn't have the power grid. Now, it's almost like it's just kind of synergistic, is we are actually developing a blockchain-based digital ID for Seminole County. We just finished the proof of concept. We do custom development as well. So it's recognizing that while you may have not been able to succeed in this and overcome that challenge, like understand potentially why that first initial thing isn't working and start working on how you can actually get there.
So you found like another solution.
Yep. Well, you have to start building that power grid before you can
I
build the light bulb.
think that that's so interesting, and I had no idea, but we faced a very similar challenge with CrowdMed. So CrowdMed launched in 2013, right? Patented algorithm. We have a network of thousands of medical detectives that look at a case that's submitted online and then use this algorithm and the power of crowdsourcing to statistically solve this case. Back in 2013, telehealth wasn't even widely adopted at that time, if you kind of think back, right? So people weren't even to the point yet where they would even trust a doctor on the phone, much less kind of submitting their medical records, right, to this cloud of healthcare providers to kind of solve their case. So that created a huge challenge for us. We knew that it worked. We, proved the data and the statistics out. What we had to end up doing to overcome that challenge, we had two really important pivots. The first thing we had to do is we had to really, really significantly decrease our burn rate, right? We know that it's going to be a much longer sales cycle than we had originally anticipated. We also had targeted this as B2C or business to consumer, right? Selling directly to an individual. And so the other pivot that we did is we did a pivot to enterprise. So we looked, okay, what are the other really forward-thinking technology companies that might want an innovative benefit to provide to their employees? So we made our target market become more technologically advanced or able to embrace the concept of what we were doing. And that's how we found success. But we had a very similar challenge. I think, in my opinion, we were so early to market. If we would have come along 4 or 5 years later, I think that the trajectory of the company would have been markedly different.
Yeah.
And I think that builds on what I was saying earlier about that need for flexibility. So when I first kind of approached the idea of Soul Venture, it was to build what's called an association health plan. So there have been some new regulations that came out that finally sole proprietors could join the association to get group insurance and build on top of that plan a marketplace so they can connect to work. Because if you provide great benefits, people will stay along with you, and then you take a transaction fee on that revenue. And pretty much as soon as we got the commitments for money, the regulations were stopped in the courts. And for me, it really just took that moment of take a step back, and did anyone even know what the hell an association health plan was? No. So that wasn't really the purpose. It's trying to explain this concept. So how can we start to hit it in different ways and be more innovative? So I think that it's about that ability to, even if you think you have a brilliant idea, there are all these external factors, whether it's timing, whether it's regulations, whether it's, you don't have enough money, that you have to start to become creative and innovative and look at what is the solution I was trying to reach? What are other approaches to hitting that?
Yeah, I agree. Having a business-to-consumer business, the thing that we ran into, or the challenge that we ran into, was trying to scale too quickly. So having a strategy in place, but then something happens and we get excited and we're like, oh, we partnered with Disney, now that's gonna open up doors for this, so let's buy a bunch of products, let's hire a bunch of new staff, let's get more business, let's get more space. And then in doing that, when the market shifts a little bit, because that's what happens, in retail and e-commerce, really in every market, then you're kind of sitting there like, oh my gosh, I think we scaled too quickly. And now it's trying to be creative in what you've done, because now you're sitting there, and as the entrepreneur or as the leader of the organization, everyone looks at you. So they're like, what do we do? You told us to do this, what do we do next? So, the challenge that we ran into was really being a self-funded business. It's been 6 years and it's just our money and it's bootstrapping. And so when you scale too quickly and you're self-funded, then what you're left with is trying to figure out how to pick up the pieces and how to piece everything together so that you don't go under, or how to piece everything together so that you can continue to grow and you're not playing catch up now because you've done so much so quickly because you haven't really followed the strategy. So I think it's very important that you build a strategy, but that you stick to the strategy no matter what. So yes, you may have to revise your strategy, but actually just completely swaying away from the strategy because you get excited is a no-no. Stick to your strategy and don't scale too quickly. That would be my major piece of advice. Even if you get excited, really look at your strategy, look at what you all are trying to do, and really take a step back and say, okay, what is it that we're trying to do? How can we do this in a gradual way instead of trying to make this thing, overnight, and I'm spending a ton of money in one space and not really looking at other parts or other pieces that are to this puzzle of entrepreneurship, or this puzzle of your business, or whatever it is that you're trying to do. Doing it in a way that's not going to go so quickly and that's not going to essentially really cause you financial stress and cause extra headaches.
Let's talk about stress. Let's talk about stress. And I can think about that thing that says desserts, stress. But anyways, let's talk about stress. I mean, burning out, we talk about a work-life balance. I'm not sure that exists, and I know a lot of people say they're gonna go for it, but I find it if you're really trying to be on the forefront, it's kind of difficult to do. So how do you balance, because you're a leader, you have employees, you have contractors you're working with, you have customers that you have to please. How are you balancing all of this so that you aren't like in the middle of 275 just saying, I'm done?
So Embark has this great Slack channel, and they have all these different channels that you can go in and vent or talk about different things or whatever, and one of them is a wellness channel. And I literally just 2 weeks ago, I went in there and said, okay, how is everything going so good? And I'm so stressed out. This is like, we just landed money, we have clients, we're doing the digital ID, everything is going great. And I was standing in the bank, and I put this in the Slack channel. I was standing in the bank the other day, staring at this woman's hair, and I almost started crying because I was like, how does she have time to get her hair done? and it really got like, wow. And it wasn't even from a place of envy that she had nice hair. It was from just having that kind of time. And I'm the kind of person that, people are like, do yoga, do meditation. And I mean, I'm doing meditation going, oh my God, I have to do. And so I can't even calm my mind long enough for that. And it's a challenge, it's a real challenge. And of course, like I said, I'm in business with my life partner, so we go home. There's no point where we just stop, and so that is a challenge that we struggle with every day. So much so that I'm actually starting a podcast with a friend of mine. Her name is Christina Dill. She owns a company here locally called Smart Edge Technology. She does digital transformation for companies, and we're going to start a podcast because she's a life coach as well, and the podcast is going to be sort of about my transformation of this kind of, I'm crying in the bank over this woman's hair, to being much more centered and kind of taking a little bit back control of that balance of life. It's very difficult.
I love that you were so overwhelmed that you decided to start a podcast.
I'm curious. I get some free counseling every week. People can watch me go through my transformation. I figured, you hear podcasts all the time of people, and they just seem to have it all together. And so I thought, this might be interesting. You have it all together. I definitely don't. So let's do this and maybe show people the way, be a little more vulnerable with our falling apart.
No, I agree. I think we've all been told this when we're little, right? Who in the room's been told that you can be anything? You can be and do anything you want to be and do, right? We've been told that. But I think that somewhere along the way that we feel like we have to do everything, right? We still need to make sure that the house is in order, we need to look really good, the kids need to look really good, we better have that bikini body for summer, and by the way, we better start that company, we've got millions of dollars to raise, and we need to drop off cupcakes before this after school thing starts, right? And I don't think that there's such a thing as work-life balance. I honestly don't. And so I think one of the things that can be helpful is giving yourself the grace to know that, hey, if your legs are only shaved from the knee down, you didn't have a chance to wash your hair last night, you can still show up and the day's gonna be fine. So I think, you give yourself the grace to just kind of let some things go. And I think also, one of the things that I am ruthless about in my own life is if I can delegate something to someone else to take it off my plate, I delegate like the Dickens. I mean, I really do. So whether that's in business, right? I am so happy when I find someone that is better at something than I am, because I cannot wait to get rid of and release that responsibility.
Absolutely.
I release that responsibility at home too. So whatever you have to do to delegate in your life to kind of ease things for yourself, I would strongly encourage that.
Yeah, I'm a pretty structured person, so for me, making sure that I always run, it's a way that I de-stress, and it's a way that I start my day and kind of build my world around that. It gives me an opportunity to clear my head, and I treat it like brushing my teeth. Like, I might not shave my legs that day,
Wear pants.
but I brushed my teeth, and so I also got my run in. So that for me is just like a commitment to myself and a real routine. I think the other, I'm realist oriented, and that means that you have to kind of say to yourself, all right, there are a million fires going on right now. What are the things that I can accomplish today and knock off? And it's so satisfying, even if it was just like, let the dog out. I mean, just put some like small things on there that, but are micro accomplishments, so that you can see that you've at least made progress every day. And it's not the end of the world when you look at the list and like, okay, well that I actually could do on Thursday or Friday, or that I could delegate to someone else. And then the other, for my wife's an elected official, and her, there are some days that are just rough. And we have a kind of nice balance where we don't talk about really work very much when we get home. We're actually more likely to text each other during the day, a comment about something, but then not bring in that stress. And I think that's a really good balance, because as long as you have other confidants you can have, and you have a space where I'm very fortunate that we don't go into bed and we still have to talk about business plans. If anything, I'm told, we actually had to establish a rule, which was an issue I had, which is, hey, if it's night and you're in bed, you don't get to talk about work at all. Like, you're bringing stress to the table. So I think it's really setting kind of clear boundaries. If there's any sort of routine or structure that you like, embrace that, because most of your world will be chaos. And you can't control the chaos, and you sort of have to embrace the chaos by saying, well, I did something today that was for me, and I got something accomplished.
And it's funny you say routine, because a few years ago, I was one of those people that I want to just go wherever my creativity takes me, right? And so someone recommended the book Morning Routine. I can't remember who the author is. It's a little orange book, but the brother has it, Amazon, whatever. And so after that, it transformed my entire thinking. So now I have a morning routine and an evening routine. Do any of you care to share any of your routines?
Yeah, you know what? So I have a routine as well, but kind of to go back to your previous question, for me it's about unplugging. I happen to believe in a work-life balance. I believe that it exists, but I believe that it's hard work to get there. I believe that you have to be just as disciplined as you are when you start a business and you're serious about this business. You have to be just as disciplined when you're serious about your free time. Yeah. So that goes with unplugging. So when you unplug, whether it's a certain time of day, at nighttime, if it's a day, our unplug day is Sundays. We don't do any work. We just hang out together, my husband and I, the kids. And so it also involves not taking yourself too seriously. I think so many times, especially as women, we're trying to have this poker face and we're trying to walk in the room and we want to be taken seriously, but we take ourselves so serious and we don't even look outside to see the beautiful sun shining, and we're not even allowing ourselves to really enjoy being here in sunny Tampa. We're taking ourselves so serious and we're moving and we're working, we have all these things to do. So being a type A personality, I work off of schedules and lists too. And so on my list, I usually have something for myself. So whether that's getting my nails done or getting my hair done or whatever it is, I'm making time for myself. And I think you need to make time for yourself. I also think that you need to not take yourself so seriously. It's okay if you make a mistake. It's okay if you don't get everything done on the list. It's okay to delegate, and it's also okay to prioritize your list and maybe do the first 5 things on the list and leave everything else for the next day. So as far as routine, I do have a routine. I have 3 little boys, so we have to work off of routines. But again, it still goes back to really being okay and being flexible. And if we don't get certain things done, it's okay. Life goes on and it'll be okay.
Life goes
Just a
on.
quick,
Exactly.
do one of you want to share your routine before we open it up to the audience? No?
Well, I mean, I think I mentioned the running routine. I think it's, I kind of like Obama's principle of how when he was in office, he only wore one suit every day. There's certain things that for me, I'm just like, that's stressful to have to remember. So when I go to the grocery store, I buy the exact same foods, which sounds really tedious, but that also gives you the ability to not think about what you're going to eat for breakfast or lunch. And then it's a surprise if you end up eating out or something like that. It's like, oh wow, I broke from a pattern. And so I think, yeah, I'm very routine oriented.
So I wish that I had more consistency in my routine, but I travel a lot. So I love what you
Bless
said
you.
about the groceries. I'm totally using that tip. If you ever see me, I'm always going to be wearing a solid color dress with heels that does not have to be dry cleaned. That's what I wear every single, because I don't want to have to worry about picking out clothes in the morning and what goes together. But I will say my favorite new routine that I'm doing is I'm actually doing a really intensive kind of calendar edit. So a lot of things end up on my calendar. And when the prior month is closing out, I look at the month ahead and I've decided if this activity does not make me immensely happy or does not make me money, I am not going to do it. So if I am at anything because I think it's making me happy, yeah.
So let's open it up to questions. Do we have a mic for the audience? Just raise your hand, and Karen has a microphone. She can bring it to you. Any questions for our panelists?
Hi ladies, I'm Carolyn. I own a national PR and social media agency. So first of all, congratulations on all your success. I love listening to all you women. On the finance side, I'm in that transition. I'm launching a second business. So it's getting funding to expand my current business, to invest into the second business. Actually, in the long term, it's going to be more profitable. So I have a struggle of, I'm sure, and especially a lot of young women that I look around, I pour into my young staff. I have the divorce credit. I went through a horrible divorce years ago, started out as a single mom, launched my business, started my life over. So 7 years later, finally getting out of just that credit from my past, finally being able to now go to bankers because I've always had the cash flow, I had the revenue. But do you have any recommendations as far as getting past, I guess, I feel like I'm at that struggle. I have the big TD banks and Chase and Bank of America's wanting to sit down with me, but I've also been recommended someone in my position that has the revenue and the good business plans to go with like community banks. So more, I guess, on the finance side, because it's just, and the credit's getting there finally, but to wait another year or two, it's like I have the money, I have the track record, and it's just from this divorce credit that I can't, So do you have any suggestions or recommendations on that?
So, well, legally, I cannot give specific recommendations. But what I can say is this. I think the reason that I invite people to get more accustomed to finance and financing is because we traditionally think if we need money for our business, we need to go to the bank and get a loan. There are a lot of other ways that you can raise capital for your business. We just don't know about most of them quite commonly. So you can go to the bank, you can get loans, you can have them structure it with something non-traditional as collateral. I personally am a big fan. I advocate for keeping your personal finances and your business finances separate. If your business needs to expand, I want to make sure that you as an individual have something over here so that if that business succeeds or fails, you as an individual will be okay. And oftentimes that means looking for financing in a different area, right? This is one of the things that allows us to step forward with bravery. If we know that this business, succeeds or fails, but we have a core kind of plan over here for us, that's what gives us the power to go on and do the next thing and to be brave and all of these other things. But I would say find someone who's not a banker, but who has a more general kind of, compass of wealth management and things like that in general, because there are things out there like one of my favorite instruments called securities-based line of credit. You can have your investments invested and get credit against your investments to put into your business. There are a lot of different interesting things out there.
I didn't know
For
that.
my company, we did a raise of about $5 million. I did not give away a single sliver of equity. We did convertible notes, right? We had someone essentially loan us money and we agreed to pay it back at a certain percentage rate, and that was not a bank. It was some venture capital people, it was some individuals as well. So there are a lot more varieties of financing, many of which would not at all be dependent upon your personal credit, many of which would just look at the credit of the business itself. And this isn't even starting to talk about, if you compare with kind of a private equity partner and they do a cash injection for growth. So there are a lot of things out there. I think, again, it just goes back to, as women, we're not exposed. We don't even know it's all there. That's how people are building and growing things more quickly. They're tapping into things that we are not. So, yeah.
I would also say for you to explore fintech companies. Look at companies such as Cabbage is one. These companies, like you said, they don't really look at personal credit. They're really focusing on business. With those companies, you do need the business bank account. They do need to see deposits, things like that. But this is strictly online. It's non-traditional. There are a lot of companies out there like that. So I would say to definitely research some fintech companies. I know Cabbage is a great resource for entrepreneurs as well. So.
Brex is another name of
Yes.
one. So my
Yes, Brex.
company uses Brex. So Brex, B-R-E-X, it's a business line of credit with a credit card purely based on your bank balance for your company. It is not tied to your individual finances whatsoever. Yeah.
All right, hello, wonderful panel, amazing. So my name is Flo Davis, and you talked about it earlier. I mean, Danielle was having anyone else can answer, but I think my issue is pretty much how you guys were saying, like likability and not trying to offend any people. I'm a loving person, and I don't like anyone else to feel insecure, but I can stand with business, like, I might have something in my head, like, hey, we need to do that. So just kind of like, for me, stepping up for leadership and not really worrying about being likable or hurting someone's feelings, like, what were like direct strategies that you used for yourself if that was an issue that you had at the beginning?
Yeah. So I think that when you get in touch with the why of what you're doing, that can be incredibly powerful, right? I think it can be incredibly powerful in standing up for yourself and getting rid of the likability. Because if I walk into a room and my goal is to make this person like me, that's very different than knowing that I've got a great platform out here that literally has the potential to save people's lives. And if I don't kind of get this thing that I need or get the contract or get the whatever, there are a lot of patients out here that are never going to get the help that they could be searching for. So my why places me to be I'm thinking of myself as an advocate for my mission versus someone who's catering to who I'm approaching. I'm an advocate for this mission. So whatever your mission is, I would say get in touch with your why. And maybe your why is even, I want to grow this amazing business so I can take great care of my family and kids. right? So what's more important, having this person liking you or taking care of your family, right?
Yeah, easy.
That makes the decision between how much we cater to this person and how much we advocate for what we're trying to advocate for, I think a lot easier when you get in touch with that why.
I think we should also kind of reframe likability. So I don't need someone to personally want to be best friends with me, but I do want them to like the idea of being a partner with me.
Yeah.
Or like that I could actually be someone who's going to grow their money. So reframe that, because it's not just about friends. I mean, I have plenty of friends. I frankly feel like I have enough friends. So I'm really not looking for a buddy there. I am looking for a strategic partner. And so if you like me for that, then that's the way.
You know, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm gonna give you a really quick personal story. So I'm a very transparent person, very open. I'm not really, if you like me, but I'm very mission oriented. So I was having this conversation at Raymond James for Super Bowl, and I'm talking to someone, and I made a comment, and not knowing that this was a project that the person was working on, and the comment was like, oh, okay. And so I went home thinking, and I told my husband, I said, I put my foot in my mouth again. I told someone pretty much what they're working on is not on par for what is needed in the industry. The next day I got a call from that person. And so now we're working together on something. So I think you have to stay true to your mission. You have to stay authentic to who you are. I wasn't rude. I didn't call him stupid. It was a guy. But anyway, that's another story. Love you guys. But yeah, you have to be true to your mission and what you want to do. And I think at the end of the day, people will see your intelligence. They'll see what you can bring to the, and it's not going to close the door.
And I think you have to separate the personal side from business. I think what it sounds like is that you're trying to connect the two. And anytime you try to connect the two, you're going to run into problems. Personally, you can be one way, but in the business arena, you can be a different way. So it's okay to smile and it's okay to greet people and be nice, but you're nice to her or him, it might not be nice to the other person. So it's about business. At the end of the day, you're a business professional. So it's about going out there and being a business professional first, and then you can be a friend to your friends. Like she said, you have friends in a separate arena, but here it's about business. And although, you know, Ebony, you didn't mean to offend someone, this is business. We're talking about business. If you're offended, I apologize. But, you know, call me tomorrow. Let's talk about how we can work together potentially. Or, you know, let's talk about how I offended you and why. But you can't really connect the personal and the business. I think when you do that, you're going to run into issues.
Yeah, for sure. And just to tell a really quick personal story, and, through your life, you have different experiences, and some of them really stick with you. And it's one of those things where you just keep hearing somebody over and over in your head say certain things. And some time ago at HSN, and I kind of consider myself doing 2 tours of duty at HSN. One, I was in the programming and broadcast division. I left to have my son, and then when I came back, I was in the e-commerce division. So it was during my first tour of duty at HSN that I was very well liked, and there was people that always wanted to be around me, and I actually came in HSN through way of the broadcast division. I was modeling, and they were wanting me to be on air, and I ended up in the programming division. But there was a lot of people that liked me, and a lot of people that wanted to talk to me and hang out with me and go do things with me all the time. And I was in one of the VP of digital commerce at that time. I was in his office talking to him, and I left. And then a gentleman came in behind me, was talking to him. He left, came to my desk, and he said, Mr. So-and-so, I won't say his name, said that I really should talk to you because you're really not as dumb as you look. And I realized, that was a compliment, I guess. But just likability for women sometimes means something really different than respect. And so I think that it's really getting in touch with, just because everybody likes you and wants to be around you doesn't mean they necessarily respect you from a business sense. And when you're in a business situation, you want respect.
Likability and respect are 100% separate.
Yeah.
100%.
Do we have any other questions?
I think we need to wrap up. We're already past 10, everyone. Let's give a round of applause for the Feel free to connect with any of them afterwards, grab some additional coffee and snacks, and thank you so much for joining us today. You guys are all amazing, and can't wait to see you guys succeed and continue to run on.
I can go back to work. You mind if I get one of her business cards? Yeah.